What's up everyone, Man Bun Metalhead here. Today I'm going to give you a tour of my recording studio. So let me give you a little bit of background to why and when I built this recording studio. So I bought my house about 12 years ago. One of the main reasons I bought it was to get a recording studio, so I made sure I found a basement that was pretty much completely undone. So I started construction on it, and over the course of like 4 or 5 years, I added onto it. So it's been in its final state for about 6 or 7 years. Now, the reason I wanted to get this video done and out and show you guys is because I just bought a new house, which is actually pretty awesome. But I figured in the 12 years that I've been here, I've taken some pictures of it, but I've never really done any good documentation of what this studio is. So figured I'd show you guys. Now, the studio is split into 2 rooms, the sound room and the control room. So first, let's get into the dimensions of these 2 rooms. Now, instead of telling you guys about the dimensions of the studio in this studio, I actually remembered that probably 10 or 12 years ago, I made a SolidWorks model of this studio. Yes, I'm a nerd, but I think this would make it a lot easier to show you guys the size and dimensions of the studio. So we'll go into the solid model and you can see the whole studio right here. I'm going to go ahead and go to a top-down view. Now the dimensions of the control room are 7 foot 9 inches by 8 foot 5 inches. The sound room is 12 feet by 12 feet 10 inches. And I have 2 little cutouts. The one down here is for the water meter, and that is 4 feet 8 inches by 2 feet, and then the other one is for the drain pipe, and that is 4 foot 9 inches by 4 foot 2 inches. And the ceilings are about 7 feet tall. In order to see between the 2 rooms, but also minimize the sound transfer, I installed 2 panes of glass. Now, I did one that's completely vertical, which is on this side, and then one that is angled, that is on the other side. Now, I was under the assumption when I installed these that having them angled prevented any standing sound waves between the 2 glass panes. But that's actually not why they typically do angled pieces. They actually do 2 angled, both away from each other. And what it actually does is redirect any reflections so that you don't have 2 reflections right over each other when looking through the window. Right underneath the window that separates the 2 rooms are 16 audio jacks. There are 8 XLR jacks and 8 combination 1/4 inch XLR. So I use these to transfer audio signals back and forth between the 2 rooms. In the back of my sound room, I have a speak-on connector in the wall. So on this side, I'll use a cable to connect my cabinet to the speak-on connector. And then I have another connector in the control room that connects to the amp. What's great about that is if I have the guitarist in here doing the recording or I'm doing reamping, I can tweak the settings of the amp and hear what I'm recording in real time instead of going back and forth between the rooms. Now, obviously, I have a desk set up in my control room, which is custom built. On the left and right sides of the desk, I have a couple of effects units built in. I have a raised platform where I have my video monitors and my studio monitors. And on the left side, underneath the desk, is another effects rack. My computer actually isn't in my control room. I leave it outside of the studio so I don't get any of the fan noise coming from the computer. Now, there are 2 things that are very important when building a recording studio, and that is sound absorption and sound isolation. Sound absorption prevents sound from bouncing off of the walls, and sound isolation prevents sound from getting out or, more importantly, into the studio. For sound absorption, I use GIK acoustics panels. They're made of rigid fiberglass, and what that does is give me a broadband absorption spectrum. I use 3 different panels from them. One is the 244, which is a 4-inch thick panel, the 242, which is a 2-inch thick, and the Monster, which is about 6 inches thick. I mostly use 244s. In the sound room, I have them from top to bottom in 4 of the 6 corners. 2 of the corners just didn't really make a whole lot of sense. And the reason I use those in the corners is because typically you get a lot of low-end frequencies that are going to sit in those corners and get amplified. So that really just takes care of all of that. If you're ever curious, go ahead and stand right in a corner while you have music playing, and you can really tell that difference from going in and out of the corner of those frequencies being amplified. In the sound room, I have 5 244s on the ceiling, and these are pretty much set up right where a drum set would sit, so you don't have the reflections coming from the cymbals and whatnot coming right down back onto the mics. I have some 242s on the wall in various places, and the way I decided where to put them is I wanted to make sure I didn't have 2 opposing walls that had no absorption on them, so you don't have a wave that keeps bouncing back and forth. And I have a couple of 242s that are mounted on mobile bases, just in case I need any spot absorption in the sound room. In this alcove behind me, I have a 244 up in the corner and 2 242s on the back wall, and that really just helps deaden this space. In the control room, I have 244s in all 4 corners. And then I have a set of 244s on the walls to prevent any reflections from coming back from the monitors. I have 2 244s right above the listening position, and then I have a monster bass trap directly behind me in my control room, and what that is for is to prevent any reflections from my monitors coming off of the back wall. To prevent myself from constantly running into this trap, what I did was installed it on a couple of slide rails that you would get from Home Depot, and just made those between the trap and the wall. So to get it out of my way, all I have to do is that. But you may have noticed in this video or some of my other videos, I do have some acoustic foam in my sound room. And the only reason I have those 4 tiles on my wall is to prevent my hanging guitars from banging into the wall. Now, I used to have a bunch of acoustic foam all around in this room, and acoustic foam is okay. You put it up in the room, you clap your hands, and you don't hear an echo. That's great. The problem with acoustic foam is it really only takes care of the high frequencies, maybe some of the higher mid frequencies. You might not hear the echo from the clap, but you are doing nothing for your low and lower mid frequencies and all your mid frequencies too. So you're really not doing much as far as sound isolation, and really that's why you need the rigid fiberglass. So to get an idea of what all this sound absorption actually does, let's take it down. So now you can really hear what this room sounds like without any absorption, and I actually haven't heard this in 10 years maybe, and it's kind of freaking me out. So let's go back to that absorption. So now you should be able to hear all the echo completely gone. So now let's move on to sound isolation, or keeping the sound from coming in. Now there are 3 main considerations I have to worry about sound other than people walking around. I do have a water meter back in the corner, I have a furnace just outside the door, and I have a drain pipe also right outside the door. So I have to worry about all 3 of those things. And for the construction, we're gonna go back into the solid model. So I used 3 different materials for the construction, and that was drywall, multi-layer vinyl, and green glue. So I'm finishing up this edit, and I just realized that I called MLV multi-layer vinyl. That is incorrect. It is in fact mass-loaded vinyl. Let's see how many times I screw that up. Obviously, the drywall is the drywall. The multi-layer vinyl would go in between the studs and the drywall, and that just adds more mass to help dampen any sounds that are going to come through those studs. And then the green glue would go in between 2 sheets of drywall. So when I originally built the studio, I used multi-layer vinyl and drywall, and then later on I used green glue and additional drywall. So let's look at the model and show you where I did what. On these walls, I used 1/4 inch multi-layer vinyl and 5/8 inch drywall. On these walls, I used only 5/8 inch drywall. On these walls, I did 5/8 inch drywall, the layer of green glue, and then another layer of 1/2 inch drywall. On the ceilings in the control room, I used only 5/8 inch drywall. On the ceilings in the sound room, I used 1/4 inch multi-layer vinyl with 5/8 inch drywall, and then a layer of green glue, and then a layer of 1/2 inch drywall. The reason I did that is because it was in a basement and there was a lot of foot traffic above that space. Now let's talk doors. Both are solid core. On the sound room door, I added a layer of multi-layer vinyl just to add even more mass to this door. I added a very thick door seal to the top and the sides of the door jamb, and I added a threshold seal to the bottom of the door. It has a little button mechanism so that when you close the door, it swings down and seals against the threshold of the door so you do not have any air gaps. Since the furnace is right outside my door, I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on so you can really hear that furnace going. It almost sounds like I'm talking way over it. So let's close that door. That's not too bad, is it? So right behind me is the area where I needed to build around my water beater. Now in order to get to it, I had to make an access panel, which is hidden by these base traps. So let's get rid of them. Ooh, it's heavy. And of course, we'll go to CAD one more time to look at this panel. So I'll use a 2x4 frame. If I get rid of the frame, you can see on the back here, there was a layer of 3/4 inch drywall, and then a layer of green glue with a layer of 1/2 inch drywall inside of the frame. And on the very back of the frame was 2 layers of 1/2 inch drywall separated by a layer of green glue. This thing weighs about 60 pounds and is really good at not letting any sound through. Well, that is it. That is my recording studio. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. If you did, please give me a like below. It really helps me out a lot. And if you want to hear more about what I'm working on, like moving this whole recording studio into the new house, gear reviews, tips and tricks, that kind of stuff, please subscribe to my channel below and hit that little bell icon so you're notified whenever a new video comes out. But hey, until next time, rock on.